Hello and good morning friends, welcome to the CEC-UGC live lecture. Dear friends, with our ongoing series on marketing management, today we would be talking on retailing in detail. And for this discussion, we have once again with us in our studios Dr. Garima Gupta. Dr. Garima Gupta is an Associate Professor in Faculty of Management Studies, Delhi University. So let's welcome our guest Dr. Garima Gupta and let's try to grab maximum knowledge through her experience. Hello ma'am, welcome to the lecture.
Thank you ma'am. Very good morning students. So today we would discuss on retailing in detail. The specific learning objectives include to have an overview of the changing retail industry, to understand what are the various retail models in Indian context, to understand the retail strategy and the marketing mix comprising a retail sector. We would also look into the tangible and intangible aspects of retail, elements of the store layout, how you should manage the store, and finally the private labels. So let us discuss about first of all what is retailing. Now students, as we had already discussed in the session on distribution, retailing encompasses the business activities involved in selling goods and services to consumers for their personal, family or household use. It includes every sale to the final consumer. If we broadly look at the retailer's role, we would understand that probably the manufacturers, they get in touch with the wholesalers. So suppose we have got manufacturers of various brands, brand A, B, C, D, E, F. Now these manufacturers, they are going to get in touch with the wholesalers, and the wholesalers in turn, they are going to get in touch with the retailers, so that the retailer is finally going to provide all these brands to the final ultimate consumer. So as you can look in the graphical presentation also, we have got manufacturers catering to various kind of brands. These manufacturers are getting in touch with the wholesalers. The wholesaler is actually getting in touch with the retailer, and the retailer is finally making these brands available to the consumers. If we look at the changing retail industry, we would find that initially there used to be some store like a convenience store or a kirana store, but not only in today's time the format has changed. So what has changed in the today's retail scenario is the fact that the retail store is connected 24/7 through the consumers and to the consumers in a number of ways. So there is a connectivity through the internet, so that the e-retailing format is booming and the consumers, they have a choice to connect with the retail store and place an order through an online transaction. Similarly, through the scanning machines and the database which you maintain at the retail store, you are able to connect with the consumers and you are able to track their behavior and their movement. There is also a provision where you can seek the orders online, you can go in for the feedback and the grievance handling. So we'd say the entire format, the look and feel of the retail sector has undergone a change. Now what kind of opportunities has it presented to the consumers and to the retail sector? So on the consumers front, we see that the undergoing changes in the retail format has given you multiple options to exercise. So as a consumer, you can either go through the conventional way of shopping, moving on to your conventional stores, shopping through your kirana stores, convenience stores, departmental stores, or you can exercise a e-retailing format. For the retail sector, the kind of opportunities it presents includes the rising emerging marketing demand, or we can say the rise of the global middle class. Now when we talk about the rise of the global middle class, we understand that these are the people who are having money in their hands and they have got purchasing power. So they can exercise that kind of purchasing power by getting in touch with the retail and placing the order for the goods and services. There are new marketing channels which have come up. In fact, we have seen that there is a multi-channel kind of a retail setup which has also been formed up, or the manufacturers are also understanding the importance of multi-channel retailing. The retailers also have an opportunity to create a competitive differentiation, and this competitive differentiation could be created through various ways, like they can go in for local branding, they can go in for their own private labels, they can do something for the community, they can undertake the social responsibility initiatives, they can also tap on the opportunities which the booming retail sector has created by offering various kinds of new goods and services. They can also go in for enhancing the supply chain management. If we look at what is the current stage of Indian retail industry, we find that currently it is in its growth stage. So it has picked up. If we go by certain reports like IBBEF report of 2017 or what was quoted in February 2017 in Economics Times, one would find that the retail sector is on a growth path. And it is estimated that US dollar 1.3 trillion is what is the expected growth of the retail sector to hit by 2020, which again reiterates the fact that the retail sector has actually presented a lot of opportunities for the firms to grow and come up with their offerings for the ultimate consumers. The retail sector in this growth stage is being categorized under two heads. One is the organized retail that we find in India, and the other is the unorganized retail. So we'd say when you talk about the unorganized retail, we'd say there was the historical retail setup which used to have a very in-depth rural reach, and it used to prevail in the form of small kirana stores or vendors, hawkers, or small say unorganized form of the retailers, which then took over in a different kind of a format where we saw the emergence of the convenience stores, departmental stores, and mall concept. And in the modern format, we'll say the rise of the shopping complexes as a whole, which are presented n number of opportunities to the consumers, and also the modern retail format where the consumer are also exposed to e-retailing. The focus we find in the retail sector is increasing on the rural side of it. When we talk about India's specific retail model, which if India as a market has never been of a kind where the retail did not have its presence. The only thing is that the formats have undergone a change and it has grown in its popularity, and its emergence is on the rise every day. So when we talk about the Indian specific retail models, one can talk about the very old public distribution system. Now what we mean by a public distribution system is the fact that you have the fair price ration shops which cater to the needs of the commodities like kerosene oil, rice, wheat, pulses, and so on and so forth. So say these kind of public distribution systems which were opened up as a fair price shops by the government were nothing but a form of a retail model in Indian context. Similarly, we find ITC coming out with e-Chopal, which is nothing but some sort of an initiative which is being taken up to help the farmers or to help the agricultural produce reach out to the ultimate consumers in a fair manner. So similarly, the Haryali Kisan Bazaar initiative, which was taken up by DCM, or the Godrej Aadhaar, which is again an initiative by Godrej Group, all these kind of initiatives were actually the core presence of retail in the Indian scenario, which not only helped the farmers or the agricultural side of it in terms of making those things available to the ultimate consumers, also at the same time helping the farmers in getting all the information from the start to finish, like what kind of farm fertilizers are available, seeds are available, guiding them, training them, enabling the entire supply chain, making the distribution of the farm produce and the agricultural produce easily available, fixing up of the price, helping the farmers in getting the right price of their farm produce, and so on and so forth. Let us now understand what actually do we mean by retail strategy in modern times. Now, we say the retailer has to first of all identify the target market as to what should be the group of TG to whom the retailer should reach out to. And depending on the target market to whom you want to reach out to, you would also be positioning your outlet, or you would also be positioning your retail. The format the retail plans to use at the end of the day is basically channelized to satisfy the market needs. and the basis upon which the retailer plans to build is basically a sustainable competitive advantage. So the retailer is going to come out with the target market, identify the target market, is able to come out with the plans to satisfy the needs set of the target market, and is also going to uniquely present and position its offering at the retail store, and would also take initiative to develop a sustainable competitive advantage. Now, when we talk about the role of marketing in retail, we find that marketing in the initial stages helps the consumers to know about what all is there on offer, and also at the same time enables the retail to get closer to the end customer. So it is basically the retail which is acting as a linking pin between the manufacturers and the consumers, or say the wholesalers and the consumers. So it's the final linking pin with the consumer is the retail, which is also providing them all information related to what all goods and services are available for their consumption. Now, when we talk about marketing mix for retail, we can broadly decompose it into many parts. Like we would be talking about product. So here we would deal as retail product, we would be talking about the merchandise. So what is the kind of merchandise which is available for the consumers? Retail also has to come up with a pricing strategy, that is how well it can price its offerings. Place, that is the location. Promotion, what kind of communication mix the retail can adopt in order to promote its goods and services or its outlet. All is also dependent on the kind of presentation that is required inside the retail store, what kind of customer service the retail is providing, and what is the level of people interaction or the quality of people interaction inside the retail store. And we are going to cover some of these aspects which are very important to craft a retail strategy. Let us first of all understand as to what is then the retail strategy. Broadly put in, we can say retail strategy is nothing but a broad plan of action which a retail is going to undertake in order to connect well with the target member. It is therefore an overall plan which guides the retail firm. So all the procedures, all the plans, all the marketing activities which are involved in giving you a right course of action to connect with the TG, your group of target market, is what would be embedded in the retail strategy. It definitely is going to influence how the retail is going to function, because it is going to give you a course of action which the retail has to follow, and also influences how well the market is going to respond to the initiatives taken up by the firm. So, we would say this therefore influences the firm's response to the market forces, and in turn the customer's response to the initiatives or the efforts taken up by the retail. Broadly, when we talk about the retail concept, we can understand it as having 4 guiding parameters. 1, a retail has to have a customer orientation. We know that there is a lot of competition in the retail scenario, and in order to keep the customer satisfied, you have to have a customer oriented approach. So, you have to understand what are the needs and requirements so that you can appropriately stock the kind of goods and the nature of the goods which are required by the TG or which are required by the members of your target market. So, it is very important for you to have a customer oriented approach. Along with it, there has to be a coordinated effort, in the sense that retail has to coordinate with different kinds of say functional areas. So, it is not only the retail marketing strategy which is to be crafted, but the retail also has to look into its financial side, it also has to look into its communication side, it also has to look into its human resources. So, a well coordinated effort in terms of arranging for the funds, in terms of promotion, in terms of location, in terms of the human resources put together will give you a retail strategy which would then turn out to be effective in terms of handling your ultimate consumers and having a good connect with them. The retail also has to work towards value proposition. So, it is a retail is all value driven these days. So, it is a whosoever shops wants to have the value proposition as a consumer. So, it is a if retail can position itself in terms of the value premise, sometimes this also adds to the effectiveness of the retail strategy. And lastly, one has to work towards a goal. So there is a certain retail objective, and that objective could be either to pull the crowd to your retail outlet, to have a greater market share, to have a deeper say understanding and penetration of the target market, to keep on widening your base of consumers, or to only concentrate your efforts on the loyal customer. So whatever is your goal, your strategy is ultimately going to enable you to accomplish that goal. So an overall understanding of these components will help you in crafting your retail concept, which can then be taken forward in terms of your retail strategy. So we look at the specific things which a retailer needs to take into account in order to effectively craft its retail strategy. There would be some growth oriented strategies or some growth oriented objectives. Your retail product should appeal to the overall target market, what is your prime market. The retail should also try to develop a distinctive company image or a distinctive retail image, so that the consumers are able to distinguish between the offerings of one retail setup vis-a-vis the other one. There has to be a strong customer service component. So it's a one core point where one retail organization can create a distinction with the other is the fact to what extent you are able to roll out strong customer service, or maintaining employee relations, or having certain commitment to technology. So, we say now with the new forms and formats of the retail coming up, the retail is required to be committed to the technology, in the sense that you need to have updated technology, say computerized billing system, tracking, scanners, in order to do that particular job in an effective manner. And one needs to constantly monitor the performance. So there has to be a proper appraisal system in place in order to check that yes, the things are moving in the right manner. When you talk about the growth strategies, which say once you have crafted your overall strategy as a retail, it is quite obvious that the retail would like to go on and branch out later on. So it's a one has to figure out the ways in which the retail can grow in future. And when we talk about the growth strategy, they are basically the 4 strategies which are followed by the retail. Say for example, the first one is the market penetration strategy. Now when you talk about the market penetration strategy, you want to present your retail offerings to the existing customers using the existing retail formats. For example, you know that a consumer enters into a retail setup. Suppose he is asking for trousers, and after purchasing trousers, you take him to the other section of the retail store which caters to shirts, which caters to ties, which caters to the similar kind of the items. So there is an existing customer and you are presenting the existing retail format, and you are trying to elaborate it by penetrating deeper into the market. The second strategy could be to go in for an expansion, which is also known as a market expansion strategy, where you present the existing retail format to the new market segments. That is, you keep on adding new products to your existing product line. So suppose you were dealing with conditioners earlier, you now branch out to say the shampoos and the other kind of hair care products, and we have seen that retail has branched out to diversified areas, both related ones and unrelated ones. The third growth strategy could be in the form of changing the retail format, where you go in for a development strategy and you develop a new retail format for the same market. So it's a going in for a development format where you are going in for, say, providing now online services in addition to your physical brick and mortar store. And the last one would be to go in for the diversification strategy, trying a new format for a new market altogether, which presents multiple opportunities for retail in future. So let us now see what can be the various opportunities to develop a sustainable competitive advantage. Now students, as we had already seen that retail is working nowadays in a severe competitive environment. So in order to effectively create distinction, it is important that the retail understands and identifies its areas of competitive advantage or its areas of competitive strength. Now, these areas have to be identified and explored by the retail on its own. Say for example, one area of a sustainable competitive advantage could be, say, the unique customer service or a unique merchandise. So, it is say the kind of merchandise, that is the kind of products and the assortment and the categories that you handle in your retail store could be your unique strength. Now, it is on you to see the extent to which the retail is able to maintain this or sustain this competitive advantage. So, so long as you are able to roll out the unique merchandise which is not available in any other outlet, but it is available in your outlet, that is going to give you a competitive edge over the rival retail firms. Similarly, the kind of customer service that you roll out is going to speak for its own self when it comes to your positioning in the market space. Location can also give you a competitive advantage. So, many a times we find that probably a particular retail outlet does not offer a very unique kind of merchandise, or probably people are not that satisfied when it comes to the kind of customer service that it rolls out. But because of its unique location or because of its distinct location, it is very easy to reach out to that particular retail store. People prefer that particular location over any other store, and it adds to your competitive strength. Your human resource management can also be one area of your competitive strength. So, we find you have got access to good labor supply, people do not leave your organization, people come to your store only because they find good personnel working in your store. So, the kind of behavior that they roll out to the customer is what draws people to your store. You may also have strength in the form of having a very good distribution system, so that your supply chain is very good, your vendor relations are very good. So, let's say you are able to have a very effective logistic model. Also, the customer loyalty could be one of your strengths. Let's say you may not be in a position to keep on adding new customers to your existing base, but whosoever deals with you turns to be a loyal member of your organization, which could be an effective strength of your retail. Let us now talk about retail merchandising. So, let's say the entire strategy, as we have already seen, rests on the fact as to what kind of merchandise, what kind of products do you stock in your retail outlet. We have already also seen, students, that offering a unique merchandise could be one of your sustainable competitive advantage, and it is up to you as to what kind of merchandise you would be holding in your store. So, when we talk about retail merchandise, we would be concentrating on all the activities which are involved in planning, buying and selling of merchandise. Often these merchandise which is being available in the retail outlet is a function of both the inter-organizational factors as well as the intra-organizational factors. Now, when we talk about the inter-organizational factors, we mean to what extent one can draw the comparison of the merchandise between the retail outlets. So, let's say what is available in one may or may not be available in the other store. So, let's say what you would be holding as a merchandise in terms of the inter-organizational factors would depend on factors or elements such as the retailer's size, the retailer type, the retail structure and so on and so forth. Similarly, on the intra-organizational factors, one has to look for the elements which are present within the retail outlet, that is your own way of doing the work, your structure, your formation, your format, your policies, procedures and your way of, say, going in for material procurement, merchandise buying and selling efforts. So, let's say all the organizational efforts which are internal to that retail organization will also decide as to in what kind of retail merchandise you would be dealing with. Now, when we talk about merchandise planning decisions, we say that one outlet has to plan for the type of the product that you would be holding, the price of the product and the various ranges within which those merchandise would be made available, and the whole assortment of that merchandise, which is nothing but what all possible products you would be offering within that item or within that particular category. One has to also plan for the number of retail outlets, that is whether you would like to branch out into multiple retail stores or say the chain stores of that particular retail, or you want to confine your efforts to only a single store in the city. One also has to plan effectively for the retail space and displays, because the merchandise has to be displayed in an effective manner. You also have to decide on the sourcing of the merchandise, like whether you want to make or buy that particular thing. You have to identify the vendors from where you would be procuring the merchandise. You have to go in for negotiation and bargaining skills. You also have to allocate the merchandise finally when you receive them to your various branches or to the multiple stores, and effectively you also have to undergo for the performance monitoring and evaluation at the end. So, students, we have seen that the retail has to function in such a manner so that it is able to derive that competitive strength arising from its merchandise and from its core retail strategy. We would now take the discussion forward in the subsequent session and learn more about retailing. Thank you. Okay, students, so in continuation to our previous discussion, let us understand more about merchandise planning process. Now, as we have seen that merchandise is something which is a very important component for any retail. In fact, this also turns out to be one parameter on which the retail can develop slowly its competitive strength. So, the decision areas involved charting out a course of action, which involves various stages. So, if we talk about various stages in the merchandise planning process, it begins by developing a sales forecast. Now, when we go in for sales forecast, it helps us in getting answers to questions like how much of each product will need to be purchased, so that I am having those kind of products available in my retail outlet as merchandise which are bound to generate some demand, and therefore I would be able to generate sales for the same. I also have to decide on whether or not the new product should be added to the merchandise assortment and the price which should be charged for those products. Once I am okay with these kind of the questions, we would be moving on to the second stage, which would deal with determining the merchandise requirement. So, I have to come up with the creation of my merchandise budget, and also I have to come up with my assortment plan. That is what all kind of products, ranges, variety, sizes, SKUs I need to maintain in my retail outlet at all points of time. Deciding on that, I will be moving on to the third stage, which would be the control aspect. So here I would be going in for merchandise control, which would entail my putting certain limits over overbuying and underbuying, so that I do not get landed up with the retail merchandise which is not moving, or I underbuy and there is a demand which generates for that particular merchandise and it is not available in my retail outlet. In that case, it is going to result into loss of goodwill, loss of reputation and loss of customers. So I have to have a control over on my merchandise, so that I neither have an under stock of the merchandise nor I am maintaining an overstock of the merchandise. Also, I have to maintain the purchases within the prescribed budgetary limits. After that, I would be moving on to the final stage, which would be on assortment planning, where I would be planning my assortment in the sense that I would be looking for a proper shelf space to display my assortment, and also have to decide on the merchandise mix, that is the variety, the options, color, size and SKUs. When we talk about the merchandise and the assortment, the related thing which has to be dealt with is category management. I would say these days we know that the consumers, they enter the retail store with a specific need, and what they generally look for is the product rather than the brand. So what therefore the retail needs to be doing is to plan the category. They have to manage the product category rather than a particular brand. So we'd say when we talk about the category management aspect of retail, this is something which handles the total range of products sold by a retailer to the final consumer. So in case of the category management, I am breaking down the total range of products into similar product categories. That is, I am creating discrete groups of the product categories. Now, what is the rationale? The rationale is that I as a retailer would like to add value to the product category as well as to my business, so that the consumer is going to look for a product category and then I am going to provide all the options which I am able to provide within that product category. Each category which I identify in such a manner is handled as a strategic business unit, that is, it is handled independently. And we find that this kind of category management system is mostly prevalent in case of retail outlets like the grocery stores or the retailers which handle the mass merchandising. So, this is basically in case of mass merchandising form of retailing. If we see a snapshot of how the category is managed, the graphical representation tells us that suppose we have identified as a retailer a category which is oral hygiene. So, oral hygiene becomes my broad category. Within the oral hygiene, what can be the subcategory? It could be either I am dealing with toothbrushes or toothpaste. Within the toothbrushes and the toothpaste, there could be further segmentation, like in case of toothpaste, I can further go in for segmentation as a retail. It could be a cosmetic toothpaste or it could be something which is used for the therapeutic purposes. Again, there is sub-classification possible in the sense that within the therapeutic form, there could be, say, I am looking for something for sensitive problem, or I am looking for a cosmetic protection, or I am looking for a homeopathic kind of a solution. Within that, I could be looking out for different kind of manufacturers. I can look out for different kind of product groups like a dispenser or a tube. I can look for, say, within various options available within the similar category, like going in for a paste or going for a gel, and within gel or within a paste, what all brand options do I have. So, as you see, students, this is a very detailed kind of a plan which is to be made at the end of the retailer, so that I can have ample number of brands which I decide to keep within each category that I want to maintain. And for each brand, again the retailer has to go in for an assortment decision pertaining to what all colors I want to keep, what all sizes I want to keep, what all styles I want to maintain. And so we find that a retailer has to deal with a complex range which is a very broad range of products which have to be kept in the retail store. So, when we are deciding on the assortment plan, the key parameters which generally help the retailers in deciding on their category and the assortment is the attributes of the products. You have to take into consideration the aspects like what are the various price points that you have to maintain. So, let us say a lower price point, a middle price point or a higher price point, what all brands you want to keep, what all themes you want to maintain, how your store is structured, that is what are the characteristics of the store, and does your store allow you to go in for say all the kinds of brands and all the kinds of varied assortment plans, or whether you have to restrict it keeping in mind the type of the store or the customer who would come to your store. So, let's say keeping all brands in your store probably may not work, because the kind of customers who come to your store probably ask for a limited kind of brands or a limited types of products. Similarly, one has to take into consideration the time factor, that is what is the seasonality of that particular product. So, if the product is of a seasonal nature, it is going to find space in your assortment planning or your brand decision only if the season for the overall product is right. One also has to go in for decision related to space utilization. So, whatever you keep in the store, one has to take into aspect the fact that it should find proper space and proper display. Otherwise, the whole point of having that merchandise in my retail outlet would go futile. We understand now that merchandise is important. But just focusing on the merchandise is something which is not going to bring the customers to your retail store. What is going to bring the customer is something more than only the merchandise. And therefore, students, we move on to the second parameter which assumes importance in our retail strategy, which is the customer service. Now, when we talk about the customer service, the retail specifically needs to understand as to why customers make the purchases which they make inside the retail store. So, what motivates your decision inside the retail store, what guides your shopping behavior inside the retail store, what factors influence the consumer purchases. So, it's an in-depth understanding of the consumer buying decisions or the buying behavior is going to help the retail in formulating its strategy in an effective manner. One also has to at times look at the changing factors in the society, like what are the factors which have undergone a change, due to which probably the shopping behavior would have undergone a change. So, are the consumers preferring the convenience mode over the kind of the merchandise which the retailer is able to keep, or it is some other factor which is guiding their purchase decision at a given point of time. When we talk about the customer service, we say that there has to be a provision of customer service being rolled out from the retail end to the customers at 3 points of time. That is, before you make a purchase decision, during when you are making the purchase decision, and also afterwards. Now, it is important that you link the customer service and you form the customer service as a core of whatever you are providing to the consumer as a retailer. So, let's say the importance of the customer service may vary. It may change and differ according to the product, according to the industry, according to the customer. In some of the cases, we find that the after sales service becomes very important. In some of the cases, we find that the kind of customer service you roll out during the time when the customer is there inside the service factory or is inside the retail premises, this is what is going to help you in converting everything into sales for the retail. So, it's the importance is going to vary across the product category, across the consumer, but in no way can we assume that the retail can do without having its focus on the customer service. Now, when you talk about the customer service, what all activities would come into play? The activities would be the support services, facilitating the consumers in looking for the product, some sort of marketing services, sales. In some of the cases, even the customer analytics and the technical support. Also, at the same time, one has to understand the various gap areas or various fail points which may occur. You know, retail is a setup where you are interacting with people component. There is a lot of interaction which takes place with the customer. So right from the point where the customer enters the retail space to the point where he would be finally placing an order and the transaction will get completed, there could be series of activities being performed, and the failure can take place at any particular point. So, one has to identify the service quality gap, that is what may go wrong at those different checkpoints or different fail points, and how the retail can address those service quality gaps. Now, when we talk about service quality in retail, we say to the extent to which the retail is able to conform to the service standards. We say what are the expectations of the customer when he or she is entering the retail space, and to what extent the retail is able to deliver as per the expectation levels. And the service quality gap model in that regard tells us that there could be a lot of gap areas, and one has to address the gaps related to knowledge, related to standards, related to delivery, and related to the communication. So, you have to ensure that first of all, as a retail, you understand what the customer expects. So, identification of the need and converting it into a standard specification for the retail to adhere to starts the whole process of maintaining the service quality. After identifying what the customer wants, the delivery is something which is important. So, you have to address the fact that there should be proper delivery of not only the products but also the service from the retail side to the customer. And finally, how you keep up your promises. So, what all you communicated to the customer in the past and the extent to which you are able to keep up your promises in your communication with the members of the TG is something which is going to help you in addressing the communication gap in your service quality gap model. Coming now to the communication part of it, as we have seen that you need to have a connect with the consumer, and your communication with the consumer is going to bring people to your retail outlet. So, let's say what can be then the elements of the retail communication mix. When the retail talks to the consumer, the purpose is to talk about your own brand value. You have to pitch in for your own brand image. That is, the retail has to talk about the brand image which the retail wants to communicate or convey to the consumer. In some of the cases, we find that some of the retail stores are also positioned in terms of the kind of value which they enjoy in the marketplace. Let's say this value proposition helps you in nurturing your brand equity or developing your brand equity. So, let's say at the first level, you have to make the consumers aware of your presence in the market space. You have to develop the favorable brand associations. For example, every time we go to a store or we go to an outlet like McDonald's, there is a happy feeling, children feel good, there is use of the space in a proper manner, in the sense that bright colors are used, and the entire association with that outlet leaves you with a pleasant experience. So, let's say every time you enter into a outlet or every time you enter into a store, it should help you in associating that particular place with some pleasant or a happy, satisfying experience. There also should be a consistent reinforcement. So, every time you hear about it, there is an association of a positive experience going with that particular store. This also gives in future opportunities to the retail to extend its line of business or to extend its brand name. Now, there could be various methods through which you can communicate or you can connect with the base of your consumers. Broadly, we can talk about the 4 ways or the 4 methods through which the retail can reach out to its market. One could be the paid impersonal communications. Now, when you talk about paid impersonal communications, we talk about the ways through which the retail can connect through advertising, through sales promotions, through contests, through coupons, through store atmosphere and the website. Now, we see number of advertisements of the retail stores, and they advertised in order to have their presence felt in the marketplace. There are number of sales promotion schemes which are announced by the retailer, which are also known as the retail promotion. So every now and then we see that Big Bazaar has come up with some kind of schemes, or Shoppers Stop has come up with certain kind of schemes, or retail is running some sort of contest, are one of the ways in which retail on a constant basis, on a consistent basis, communicates with its members of the TG. The second way through which the retail can have the communication is through the paid personal communication, where we would be talking about the personal selling efforts. So, there is a lot of personal selling initiatives or personalized emails which can go to you, which forms as one of the ways in which the communication can be made. There could be some unpaid forms also, both in the impersonal category and personal category. Like when we talk about an unpaid impersonal communication, it could flow in the form of, say, a publicity which could take place through the newspapers or through the televisions. There could be unpaid personal communications also, which takes form of, say, word of mouth. So there could be word of mouth which also helps in having a communication going from the retail side to the consumer side. But here, a word of caution, when we talk about the unpaid personal communication which generally takes place in the form of word of mouth, we as a retail outlet, we have to be cautious of the fact that there is now a possibility of the consumers posting negative reviews and going in for the negative word of mouth if they are not satisfied with the services or the merchandise which is provided by the retail. So then there is a greater responsibility of the retail to ensure that you keep your customers satisfied through whatever merchandise you offer to them, or through your customer service, or through any other ways, because if there is a negative word of mouth, it is going to communicate bad image and is going to result into bad press about the retail, which is finally going to not only impact the sales or the profitability, but also the goodwill of the retail outlet. Let us now see what all is required when the retail has to plan your communication program. So obviously you have to determine the objective, that is what should be your communication objective. Why do you want to communicate with the members of the TG? Is it because you want them to be aware of your presence, or you want to convey a positive association, or you are working towards, say, having or maintaining some sort of a specific merchandise and you want to communicate, or you want to communicate about your location, or you want to communicate about the geographical reach that your retail outlet have, or you just want to talk about something which is going to put your retail outlet in a superior light. One has to maintain the budget which is required in order to accomplish the aforesaid objectives, and the allocation is to be done between the various methods through which the communication can be handled. That is, how much funds are to be allocated for advertising, how much funds are to be allocated for running retail promotions, how much advertising is required for maintaining a web presence, and so on and so forth. And finally, you have to implement all those plan of actions and to see to what extent your communication program is working and is helping you in creating a favorable image about the retail store through your communication objectives. Let us now talk about some of the tangible and the intangible aspects of retail. Now students, in case of retail, it is not only the quality and the kind of merchandise which is going to decide how well the retail is doing, or your kind of customer service which is going to create a differential edge for your retail outlet, but there are certain tangible aspects which speak for their own when it comes to positioning the retail and having the retail known in favorable terms. So let's say there we talk about some tangible cues, and these cues may be in the form of situational factors, or the retail format, or the type of merchandise, or even the other shoppers or the facilities which you provide. So if we talk about these tangible aspects, we say when it comes to the situational factors, there could be some physical surroundings. So, it's how well are the physical surroundings, how well are various kind of facilities and various kind of interiors which are present inside the store. So, I'm sure many a times you have evaluated the retail store on the basis of its physical surroundings, or you have made an assessment of the retail outlet on the basis of its social surroundings or the kind of format which the retail runs, in addition to obviously the emphasis on the kind of merchandise and the kind of people. We, in addition to that, can also talk about the intangible aspects, which would assume aspects such as the processes inside the store. So, it's how easy or how difficult it is for you as a consumer to find things inside the store, to find the merchandise inside the store, how good or bad are the processes, in the sense that to what extent the entire billing system is computerized so that the waiting line is taken care of very easily, there is a proper queue management system. So, what are the procedures or the procedures through which you can track as to what are the quantity of the merchandise which needs to be replenished fast, so that you are not encountering a out of stock kind of a situation, or what is the code of conduct by and large which the retail has outlined for its working, or at a broader level what are the atmospherics, or what are the ambient kind of conditions which either make a overall stay of the consumer inside the premises satisfying, pleasant, or non-satisfying or displeasant in nature. So, I would say in line with this, one also can talk about the layout. So, when we say how well you need to plan the layout, physical setup inside the store, so that this gives an overall satisfying experience to the consumer, and also eases out the whole process when you are looking for something and you are able to track that particular item because the layout is carefully planned. Now, when we talk about the layout, as you can see, the retail can have various kinds of layout. If you see in the case of a grocery store, as is presented by the graphical representation here, the diagram tells us that this is a kind of grid design where we find that there are certain things which are displayed along the wall, and then some of the displays which run parallelly, or you can have a free form layout where you can decide as to which kind of things would be displayed where. So, whatever layout you plan out as a retail, the whole purpose is to enable the consumer to move inside the store in a easy manner, and also should enable the consumer to find out the kind of merchandise which he or she is looking for with ease. So, it's to what extent you are able to optimally utilize the space inside the retail store, and at the same time are able to provide all this kind of convenience and all these kind of efficient movement, effective movement of the consumers inside the retail premises. For this, one also has to focus on the aspects like the fronts and the entrances. So, it's what should be the window display, how should be the windows design, where all should be the windows design. Most of the times you must have noticed that the window displays are very important. They are important in the sense that the consumer is going to first of all look at what is on the display, and if the window display interests you, you are suitably motivated to go or enter inside the retail store. Sometimes the window displays are also linked with the themes, they are also linked with the events. Say for example, Christmas is round the corner, and therefore the entire window display or the entire interiors are done so as to give that kind of a festive feel to the consumers who would come to the store. Many a times during the festivals like Diwali and Christmas, you also find people, they go to the retail store just in order to see how well they have decorated the store. So, it's these kind of decorations and these kind of window displays and the interiors therefore have a power to bring the customer, they have a power to attract the customer to the store. So, we'd say they also have to move along with the changes in the season. So we say there is a winter season which is approaching, so you would find that the window display will be changed, or the entrances will be changed in order to give signal to the consumer that there is a change of season, and probably there's a change of stock that they have gone in for, keeping in line with the change of seasons. So from summer collection now to the winter collection. Also, the way in which you display the merchandise has a lot of impact and is basically something which adds to the overall appeal of the retail store, and is something related to the intangible aspect. So, it's how well you display the thing. So, the choice of the racks and the bins and the counters and the shelves and the positioning of the merchandise, so that people are able to easily find whatever they are looking for inside the store, are no doubt going to add to the overall appeal of the store. Similar in line are things which you follow in terms of the material and the finishes, like the kind of flooring that you are using, whether it is a wooden flooring or the tiles, and the color that goes well with the walls. So there is some sort of a theme display, so there has to be a proper coordination of the wall color with the kind of interiors which you have used to create a certain kind of ambience. There has to be some emphasis to be laid on lighting and music. So we have seen that if the lighting is good enough, you are able to track most of the things inside the store. Or there's a soft music in the background, it holds on to the consumer and they stay for a little while longer inside the store. Also the signage and the direction board, so that people can find out the things with ease, adds to the overall appeal. So let's say one has to manage all these things in a rightful manner. Also, the stores have to be managed in such a way so that the consumers right from the point of time when they enter into the store to finally making an exit feel completely satisfied with the whole shopping experience. So I am sure students, you have learned some of the aspects about retailing, and this would have given you a good insight as to what retail management is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much for giving us a productive session on retailing. And dear friends, we believe that you should write to us if you have any queries or if you want to give your feedback to this particular lecture. Do write to us at info.cec@nic.in. We would be meeting again very soon and would be discussing on another topic. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again.
Thank you, ma'am.